Hello everyone. This is a walkthrough of the team canvas that we'll be using for our kickoffs. This will be in different sections. We'll go over each one individually, starting with this colorful center you see on your screen. Now this colorful center, as I zoom in, should have for your team all of your team members and their names. There are two sets of boxes underneath each person, and this is for you to fill out in your spare time or before your kickoff happens, or maybe even during your kickoff. You want to put in here something you do really well. To do that, let's see if I'm new. All I have to do is double click on this card, this digital card, and it will highlight. And all I have to do is start typing to let people know what I do well. Bake cookies. Or if you want to do something professional, I know that she runs the green sprint, so she knows all about sustainable projects and cookies. That's just an example, but what you're going to do is based on where your picture is, you're going to put what you do well and what you're actively learning. This is kind of a little bit of an icebreaker for everyone on your team to know what you are currently doing. And I'm just going to hit Control-Z until I take off all of this text that I put in for Manu, because she would much rather do it herself, I believe. So once you do these two sections, these two sets of cards, you're going to kind of move south from here and go into this place called Create Your Own Avatar. Now this is a change from what we did in GVDS 5. In GVDS 5, we had pictures that were already made from different movies, different sports. People can just pick and choose a personality that matched them. But what we're going to try and do this time around is we're going to use these drawings that were made by Pablo Stanley. He's the CEO of Blush, and he created these called Openpeeps. And all you really do is you're going to take a head, a face, maybe some facial hair and some glasses, and create your own avatar. So I'll kind of show an example of this. Let's first go and say, like for me, probably I'll say my hair's like this. I'm going to click on it and then drag it right over into the center like this. Okay? Then I'm going to look for a face that I want to have as my avatar. So what mood am I usually in? Let's see. I'm usually pleasant. So I'm going to take this. Now, in the previous example, I clicked on the head and I dragged it over. Now, there could be other people on the team that want to use this. So I can just basically select it like I did, like mouse clicking just like that. And I want to use Command-C and Command-V if you're on a Mac, or Control-C and Control-V if you're on a PC. And that will create a duplicate of what you're seeing here. You're going to click and drag it right over here on top of your face. Now, there may be some times where it kind of locks in place, which is kind of annoying, but I'm going to set it there temporarily. I'm going to zoom in a bit, so I'm going to use this little zoom to image. I'm going to zoom in. It looks like that's about centered. Looks pretty good. I'm wondering, should I use some facial hair? Just wondering what that's like. I'm going to hit, actually I can do Command-D, and that'll also give me a duplicate of the facial hair. I'll click and hold my mouse button or my trackpad and go down here. Let's put it right over my mouth like this. All right. Do I look pretty good with facial hair? Not really. I'll take that and I'll just delete it, get rid of it. Now I know I wear glasses. Probably the best close proximity is this one, so I'm going to duplicate this, drag it right on over here, over my eyes. Let's see if this works for me. Okay, not too bad. I think that's pretty good. I'll zoom in just to make sure I'm seeing what looks good. Yeah, not bad at all. All right, so what you want to do for our next step is this avatar you just created, you want to group it together. And the way that you have to do that is you're going to select first the face. It's going to be in this blue outline. Then you're going to select the head first. Then you're going to select the face, and you do that by holding down the Shift key on your computer and clicking on the face. You'll see two blue boxes here. Then I'm going to Shift click on the glasses, so I include those. There you go. So I have three blue outlines that indicate my head, my face, and my glasses. Now while all those are selected, I'm going to right click on this space, somewhere in this area where I've selected. When I right click, I'm going to see something that has a whole bunch of contextual menus in Mural, but the one I'm looking for is Group, right there. So when I do that, it is going to combine all of those elements I used for my avatar and bring them into one space. So now I have something that resembles something close to me, and that's my avatar. Now I'm going to be using this in other sections of this team canvas. But for now, just wanted to show you how it's made. So there you go. See, you can click and drag and move it in different places. If you want to, you can make it huge. You can basically put your mouse over one of these corners and click and hold the mouse button, and it should make it gigantic. But we don't want to do that yet. So we're going to put it back to what it originally was with a Control-Z. And that's our stopping point for this part of the video. In the next one, I'll be going over some of the things you can do before your kickoff if you have time, so you can save time during your kickoff, and I'll explain shortly. So you've just completed creating your avatar for the GVDS. Let's go ahead and move left over here to choose your tools. This is pretty much straightforward. You are looking at all the defaults we normally use in the Global Virtual Design Sprint at the very top for different categories of apps. At the bottom are cards where you can put in something else that's not listed here if you want your team to consider it for a tool or an app they'll use throughout the month. Basically, there's two ways this can be used. If it's before your kickoff, that's going to happen, and you want to put in some suggestions, you can do that right down here in the gray boxes, or consider putting a new category altogether and then putting in your suggestion. If it's during your kickoff, a very easy way to do this is just to verify that all of these tools make sense for the team. And the way to do this is that, let's say we're going to start with a category of whiteboarding right here. We've got 3 options. You're going to ask the team, or just start up with the team, just basically saying, okay, on the count of 3, I want you to put your mouse over the one you want to use. And we'll go 1, 2, 3. And everyone will put their mouse over a mural or Miro or Fig Jam and kind of doing this circular motion I'm doing with the mouse. If you can see my little mouse button here. So that basically you'll get an idea of where the team sits. Usually if there's a tie, it just basically means a matter of a 5-minute conversation to see what makes sense. If there is a tie, I would recommend to teams to going back to the default that's listed here to make it easy to move on. But you do that kind of mouse voting I'm describing for each of these particular categories. If you do it right, after a little bit of practice, you should get through this fairly fast. The only question you may have at the end is who's going to own, say, any updates in Slack or communication there, who's going to set up Zoom meetings, who would be in charge of the templates in Mural. That could be a team conversation so that it doesn't fall on the facilitator. People who are skilled at certain aspects of these tools can step up and say, hey, I can kind of take ownership of it. But it is a team conversation for that. So to recap really fast, if it's before your kickoff, go ahead and put in some suggestions for each of these categories that you think should be up for team consideration, or put in your own app service over here. And if it's during your kickoff, just use a mouse vote where everyone goes, you count 1, 2, 3, and basically put your mouse over one of these particular ones in each of these columns to choose an app or service that you like to use. So now that we chose your tools, or at least the team has gone through each of these, or you put in your suggestions, whatever the situation may be, we're going to move all the way to the right. So we're going to go past this section where we did our avatar, and we're going to go into this kind of place where it's meant to be kind of fun. So these questions that you're going to see in this space are going to be customized for each particular team. Since this one is for Team Puppies, the question is, what's your favorite pet? Now, I've gone ahead and put a golden retriever over here, but I'm going to show you in this video how to use Mural to kind of put in an image that also corresponds to your favorite pet. So let's say you really like lizards. Lizards are your favorite pets. So you're going to go over here to this little icon over here that says Images and click once on it. It'll give you this kind of pop-out kind of rail menu that says, okay, you can search for images by keyword. I'm going to go ahead and put lizard, just like this. What'll happen is that Mural will go ahead and put in all sorts of lizard pictures. You just got to find one that you kind of like. So you can go down here, you can even use your mouse or wheel to scroll down to see if it's like, ooh, there's a blue one. What's that blue one like? Ooh, that's not bad. So when I clicked on it, you noticed I basically just clicked on it and it brought the image right into there, but I can hit delete. I wasn't into that. But basically you can go over this and it'll show you a preview on the right hand side of what it looks like. See how I'm moving my mouse over it and it shows like a little preview of a nice little lizard there. And oh, there's a googly eye one. I'll take that one. So all I want to do is just left click, or just basically click my mouse once, and it should pop up right there in that section. Now when you look at it, and I'm going to get this out of the way by clicking on this X up here to kind of close the image section. Now if you notice, this image is way too big for this. It's like super big and it's going to crowd out any other pets that are in here. Like if I try to put it over here, that dog's going to start feeling uncomfortable, right? It's too close to him. So you notice there are 4 white squares in each of the corners, and that's a really easy way of kind of shrinking down your image. And all you have to do is click and hold that one of those particular squares, and you'll see that it starts to shrink. Now, I'm moving my mouse diagonally, and it keeps the perspective of the image just very nicely so that I don't have to stretch out the lizard in one way, shape, or form. So I'm going to make it about that small. There. So that's going to be my favorite pet that I'll be talking about when I have my team meeting, or sorry, my team like kickoff. So this is something you can do in advance, or basically after you get done with kind of picking your tools, you can head on over and everyone puts their favorite pet there, and you can do a bit of guessing game. So it's like, all right, so who do we think is the person that did the dog or did the lizard? And you can go down that direction if you'd like. But the whole point is to get to know your team a little more beyond what they do well and what they're trying to learn and what they look like in their avatar. It's another place to kind of have a little bit of fun and have a little bit of conversation as an icebreaker. So that is the optional entertainment section. You can basically put in and answer the question in this section and put something in there that people can either respond to or consider. Or during your kickoff, go ahead and have everyone put in something that, of course, answers the question, in this case, the pet. And then it can be something across conversation saying, who put the dog in there? I really like golden retrievers. And just see where it goes. Okay? Next section, we're going to be getting into the challenges. So stay tuned for that. So if we just got done kind of filling in the question that's here in this right-hand side next to our avatars, we're going to zoom out a little bit. And in Mural, you just basically can use your mouse wheel or Command or Control minus, and that'll get you back a little bit. And we're going to go down here to explore a challenge. So this is where I'll have gone ahead and put in the 3 leading challenges that your team has kind of indicated on the survey that I sent out earlier. So if you did your survey, then this will be very, very close to what your team is considering for challenges. Now, the way to do this is, again, it's going to be different if it's before your kickoff or during your kickoff. If it's before your kickoff, what you can do is, let's say we're going to zoom in here to the future of facilitation, which is Ken Soto's topic. Look really briefly at like a paragraph I took from the challenge, and consider looking online or doing some research around this topic, like the future of facilitation. I literally did a Google search, and I found something that Voltage Control had done a workshop for, and it was a recap, and it has a complete kind of summary of everything there. So I did this offline, but what I'm going to do is in this video is kind of illustrate what this is. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on this just to show you. So double click, and then this is going to be an article that people can read on their own time. So again, this is something that I thought was really, really relevant to the challenge, and that could inform the rest of the team. And this is their kind of exploration to the topic that we were doing, which is the future of facilitation. So I'm going to go ahead and close this window. Now let's say I want to put in my own thing. I want to put something in here, all right, to kind of contribute to this conversation offline before people go in. It's really easy to do. I'm going to go ahead and open up a new browser, and my favorite thing is Google. So I'm going to put, again, the future of facilitation, just like that. And the one I clicked before was the virtual workshop recap. So I'm going to continue to scroll down and see if there's other things in here. There's one called, it looks like More Space for Light, but I think that has Douglas Ferguson in there. I think I'm going to kind of go past that. Facilitation in the future of work. That may be pretty good. Facilitation in the future of facilitation, digital blueprint at global scale. This is about a couple of years ago. Looking to see if there's anything recent. I'm going to change it and do 2021 and see if there's something here. Skill for the next century, control the room 2021, mastering verse. So there's a lot of master classes. How about that? 4 timeless tips for successful facilitation in a changing world. Let's do this one. Let's just see what this is. I'm going to go to IAF World. This is 2018. Oh, okay. Skill for the next century. Kind of go through it. Digital facilitation tools. It looks like there's a lot of stuff here. But I'll take some time to kind of look over and see. And let's say, hypothetically, this is something that I am really interested in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to view the, show toolbar in full screen. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and just take this URL. I'm going to copy it. So I'm just going to go ahead and put copy here. I'm going to close this, and it should take me directly back to what I was still looking at. There you go. And let's get rid of the toolbar. We don't need to see it anymore. Okay. So now that I copied that URL and I'm back in Mural, I can basically put my mouse somewhere around here, and I'm going to I can do paste. I think I can do paste here. No, I cannot. So I'm just going to basically do instead is either Command V or Control V, depending if you're on a PC or a Mac. What should happen is that it's going to fetch that article as well as a preview image, and now it is another link that is right under the future facilitation, and other people can click on it and check it out. Now, if you're doing this during your kickoff and you're at the challenge conversation, what you're going to be doing is selecting out of the three one of these particular challenges that is not your first choice. So maybe you're really keen on the Smart Cities Datathon 2021. You're like, yep, I'm all about this open source challenge. I really want to do it. But the purpose is to get some perspective before you make the choice for your team. So if you're in the middle of the kickoff, the instructions basically are is to take 10 minutes and select another challenge that's listed here. So I'm going to say, the Blue Economy Workshop. I'll do exactly like I did before, go into my favorite search engine and just maybe put in Blue Economy Workshop and learn a bit about it. And you can go depending on the time, I usually say 10 minutes, but you can do 10 to 15. And you're just going to basically put in articles and other things that you find here. At the end of that time frame, each person is going to say what they covered and figure out the top, or to basically explain the things they learned the most in that 10 minutes, like what was top of mind, what they found was interesting, and tell the rest of the team what they discovered. At the end of those conversations, after everyone does their presentation, then it will be a vote. Now, you can do this one of two ways. You can hold a vote in Mural through their like starting a voting session and vote on any of these signs. These signs should be clickable so you can vote on them. Or if you want to make it even quicker, you can just do a quick mouse vote, just like we did in a previous video, where you say on the count of 3, I want you to put your mouse over the title of the challenge you want to move forward with. Okay? So then basically someone goes 1, 2, 3, you would put your mouse, say, I want to say Smart Cities Datathon, even though I checked out the Blue Economy Workshops, you kind of go like this. And you should get an idea of how many people on the team want to do a particular challenge. If there is a tie, then it's a matter of having more conversation to say what would make sense to do. Sometimes if there's a tie, you can talk about outcomes and you can jump ahead on that conversation. What would be an outcome of, say, the future facilitation for this team? What would we like to produce? What would be the outcome of Smart Cities Datathon 2021? It's a white paper, so like what would we want to produce? What makes sense given the team? And if you still can't make up your mind, then usually you can do one of two things. First is that you can leave it up to one team member. It can either be the facilitator, or it can be your advisor or a specialist to make the call. Or two, you can basically put it on pause, give the team another 24 hours to do a little bit of soul searching, a little bit more research, and see if they've come to terms with either the one they chose or perhaps changing their mind and going to a different one. It is totally up to you. I would probably encourage the latter if at all possible. So that's this section of exploring a challenge. By the way, this is the work of Benjamin Dehant, and I'll have a link to his website that has these kinds of murals available for you to use as well. But I wanted to make a shout out for him because he was responsible for creating this. And yeah, that's the Explore This Challenge part. Next up, we're going to be moving north and talking about the main meat of our team canvas, which is getting to know each other through the needs, strengths, desires, and other things that we're bringing to the table for the Global Virtual Design Sprint. See you soon. So now that we've finished exploring challenges and we've either put in our linked resources before your kickoff, or we're kind of exploring each other's challenges during the kickoff, We're now going to head north on this particular mural all the way up to the top, which is our main section for the team canvas. In fact, this is probably the core team canvas part. Now this is a little complex at first, so I'm going to try to break it down a bit. But the first thing you're going to do before you start anything is you're going to have a seat at the table. And this is kind of like a digital table in a way. Now you've noticed that I've gone ahead and put in the names of people's of team members in each of these sections, and they're color coded, so they're all different colors corresponding to the person. And if you recall, when we were down here, there were all sorts of colors that corresponded to different people. So essentially, you just have to match the color with the person. Now, the avatar that I created in a previous video is now migrated over to where Juanis is. So to recap, it was down here when I created it, and I just basically clicked and brought it over to Juanis because this is going to be his avatar for the GVDS, and I'll center that a little bit, just like that. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to find my own spot if I'm Juanis, and it looks like it's right over here. I'm going to take this, I'm going to duplicate it. So I'm going to do a Command or Control D, depending on what kind of computer I'm on. And I'm going to click and drag all the way up here and put in this blue. Maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger so that's taking more spot, or all the blue. There we go. So now I'm actually sitting at the digital table up here. And I'm at the Team Puppies table, so to speak. Okay? So each of the 4 sections that surround this table correspond to different things that you want to do in the team canvas. They are personal goals, values, strengths, and needs. You want to, so again, we're going to approach this differently depending on whether or not we are before our kickoff or during our kickoff. So if it's before our kickoff, what we can do is go to each of these sections and start filling in some things that we'd like to share about personal goals and other things. So if you go to personal goals here, I'll go ahead and unborder that one. If I want to share a personal goal, like what do I want to experience and or achieve during my time in the Global Virtual Design Sprint, one of the things I want to do is I want to become a better virtual facilitator for my workplace, let's say. That's one way of doing it. Now, what I would caution you to do is if there's a certain fidelity with these cards that you want to hit. This is kind of right around the sweet spot where you're giving just enough information. Maybe you put a Y in here for my workplace so that I can gain more responsibility. So that has a bit of like a Y in there. Now, the one thing you don't want to do is just put learn. I mean, that's a very simple way of kind of sharing a personal goal, but it doesn't really say much. What are you learning? Or what are you learning about? Same thing is that for this particular question, if you decide to write a story where you go, I want to do, and then you have like several different things that you want to learn. And what ends up happening is that you're well-intentioned in terms of getting all the details in here, but it ends up being something like this, where it is so tiny that you feel like you're doing an eye chart. You can't really read it. And people will just probably gloss over it because it's just not engaging enough. So you want to make sure that you're striking a fine balance between fidelity on the digital card so that it's not too general but not way specific. Something in the middle that answers the question but gives just enough detail for people to understand you better. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take these 2 out, and let's just say this is one of my cards that I put in. For each of these, if you are before your kickoff, you want to fill out at least 4 or 5 of these. Whatever you feel like sharing for each of these sections, personal goals, values, strengths, and needs. Put at least 4 to 5 cards and fill those out in advance before your kickoff. If it's during your kickoff, you'll be prompted by whoever's leading probably me or a facilitator, whoever's kind of leading the activity to go ahead and put in 4 or 5 personal goals in each of these digital cards. You just have to double click on a card to put in something for each of these sections. And usually it's good to do this as a whole, meaning that you get a big bank of 5 minutes to leisurely go to each particular section and fill in something of importance that corresponds to the question. After you do that, this can happen before your kickoff or during, is that you're going to go to each section after everyone fills in their cards and take these little blue flames, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and you're going to put those on cards you have an affinity with or that you feel is something that you also have a personal goal with. So let's say mine's being a better virtual facilitator, but someone else says one of their personal goals is to be a better online collaborator, just hypothetically. And I'm looking over the cards, I see that, it's like, yep, that's something I definitely want to learn too. I'm going to take one of these blue flames over here, and I selected it because this little blue kind of selector like we were used to. I'm going to click and I'm going to drag and I'm going to put it anywhere on the card itself. So I'm going to put it right there. And what you're doing is you're basically anonymously putting in something where you say, yep, this is something that I definitely want to do that's different from my own. And as everyone does this, you'll start to see that there'll be certain cards that have more fire on them than others. When you're doing it before you kick off, usually the good rule of thumb is that if you put in 5 cards, you probably want to have 2 to 3 flames that you can use to put on other people's cards if you see them. You don't want to go a whole hog and decide, you know what, I love this so much that I'm going to select multiple flames and I'm going to go ahead and put them all over the place like this. Usually you want to restrict yourself to 1 flame per card, but kind of do it as a subset of your own contributions to the board, so you don't want to go too crazy. You'll do that for each of the sections, kind of look over what other people have done, and if it's during your kickoff, you can do that, again, leisurely. Whoever's leading it should give you 1 to 2 minutes to kind of look over what other people have done and put flames on them. What'll happen is that at the end of that, you'll have cards that have tons of flames on them. So let's say Becoming a Better Virtual Facilitator had, like, say, 3 of them. They're all kind of like this. So you can look at face value, right? You can look pretty much right away that this one seems to be very popular with everyone in terms of something that's a personal goal, something that's shared with everyone. So we would go down here and just basically we would double click on the card to select the text, go down here to top voted cards, and go ahead and copy the text into here. And you want to do that for the ones that have the most flames. If you end up having ones that have like multiple, like say there's like 3 or 4 of them that all have 3 or 4 votes, sometimes you will have to make a judgment call, but the most you want to have is 4. But what you really want to do is look for the card that has the most. That's the most important one. Or if 2 share the top votes and 5 votes each, then you put those in these 2 particular ones. But if you do have whatever one has the most votes, you want to put a little bit of a black border on it like that, so it's a little bit more distinct. You'll do that for each of the sections, kind of look over where the flames are and kind of indicate where the top voted cards are. What you'll want to do at the end, after everyone kind of goes through each of the sections and copies the text of the top voted cards, you want to put the most voted card there that's in the section, and you want to take it and you want to click and drag it over to this center section here. This holds about 10 cards all together in here, so you can kind of squish them together. Or instead, if you want to click and drag, you can just basically do a duplication like we did in a previous video and bring it right over there. So now Team Puppies shares an affinity with being a better virtual facilitator so the workplace can gain more responsibility there. So there's a number of people on this team that have that. Once you complete that activity where you have multiple cards in here that are the top voted ones, that's when you have a 5 to 10 minute discussion with the team and observe what the top voted cards means in terms of your overall purpose here for a team. But some of the other cards that didn't make it that you thought were also something that indicates an aspect of the team that should be noted. And the whole point is to kind of give an idea for everyone else what kind of team you're on, what kind of needs, strengths, desires they have in terms of coming to this particular event and learning. And it sets everyone on this, it kind of syncs them up on the right wavelength. So that as you're moving forward in the virtual design sprint, everyone knows why everyone's there. And at the end, you have this cool little avatar that you'll be using for other things throughout the entire event. So, by the way, if you ever want to change this, you can always go back to this workstation here and choose a different hairstyle, if this doesn't float your boat. But that's basically a quick introduction to the team canvas and how it works. If you have any questions, do post up in the Slack channel or reach out to me direct, and I'll be more than happy to answer questions or to revise this video if I left out anything important. Thank you very much for watching. Hope that was as clear as can be, and I hope you had fun with your team canvas. We'll be seeing you all this week. Take care. Talk to you later.